beautiful day for a peaceful protest. Good morning. All right, day 156 of a peaceful protest against high-tech human rights abuses being perpetrated in civil society by your local police. Again, you can catch up on the previous days at 21187.org. Now, I say police in that regard, but as we'll see, once we get into a 21st century murder, the taking of a life without dropping a body, there's a lot more players involved than just the police. And that's because state repression involves a lot more players than just the police. The state is very, very powerful, influential, well-financed by the power of the people and their economic might, of course. But I say the police because this protest is about human rights violations. And as universal basic human rights demonstrate in international law and the subsequent ratified by state and national laws, particularly in the U.S., governments may be complicit in human rights violations by failures of investigation in allegations made by victims of abuse. I am one of those victims. Or they may actively encourage it. Of course, they'd also be complicit in that regard as well. And since it is the police's obligatory duties to investigate, and they continue to fail on a recurring basis, they are absolutely complicit. In this protest, you will often hear me say certain players' roles are complicit and some are merely complacent. And then in those ends, it doesn't matter whether you're complicit or complacent. As a public servant, you're automatically complicit. Even if it's merely the act of turning your head the other way, it damn near fell off your shoulders in your willful denials of a citizen of harm. Don't forget the harm, because that's what this state repression is. Be it in a complacent or complicit role, they'd err towards complacent so they have plausible deniability. But state actors like your judges up here, who wield enormous influence in the advocacy for a victim like myself, remain complacent. Nonetheless, government, in whatever role, can be complicit by not investigating or actively encouraging these human rights violations. You understand? So, as we'll get into this, you'll see there's a lot of facets to it. From my personal experience, I viewed a lot of public union membership, a lot of critical infrastructure sectors involved in this long-form harassment. This new phenomenon of taking a life without dropping a body. Okay? And so these state actors here, yeah? In this state repression, indirect repression, silent repression, look up Zersetzung, Tactics of East Berlin, being perpetrated on the west coast of America by your local police. Okay? So you'll see a lot of these other things when I get to tell my story, which should be any day now. It's not just police. It's the state and all those pathetic adult bullies they seem to indoctrinate with such ease. Living lives of quiet desperation, just begging for inclusion. So long as they don't get in trouble for it. So long as they get to gang up on someone that they don't even know. Just trying to claim their basic universal human rights. Their constitutional rights. Only insofar as that, right? Right? This is a very, very slippery slope, ladies and gentlemen, and you might think you're insulated as a member perhaps of this state, or maybe just a position of wealth and privilege, so that you have not been victimized at. But it's a slippery slope in a post-democratic society, and it only slides one way. And when it comes to harming citizens with weaponizations of municipal government, with dual-use surveillance technologies whose primary use comes to abuse those citizens, and it's all funded by yourselves, which way do you think it slides? So, we are day 156. We took a little bit of a break to the Rumble audience, the TikTok audience. Santa Barbara has a big event every year. That took place last week, so we took a little bit of a break. I was here the previous 156 days prior. I tried to engage this protest last fiesta in 2022. I've been through this before, ladies and gentlemen, so I know how the state's going to react. I also know when public spaces will be used. So this is why I want you to pay attention to this semester. So we left off on day 155 discussing those lenses to which we're going to view this long-form harassment. And just to reiterate, since we've had a little bit of a break, what's the definition of harassment? To target someone with behaviors meant to alarm, annoy, torment, or terrorize, but also creating a reasonable fear in that person for their safety or their property. And I like to add their loved ones, as occurred with me in my long-form harassment. Now we discuss, when we get into my personal story, we're going to discuss 3 different modes of harassment. Remember? One of those is mode A, mode B, mode C. And we'll be talking about them as they became apparent to me. Mode C being a criminal civil harassment, which includes physical stalking, as well as physical harassment. Mode B is electronic harassment and cybercrimes, which doesn't necessarily mean to be criminal intrusions into electronic devices, as was the case for me, but merely unlawful. Because when it's the state perpetrating it, they already have the access. You understand? It's just an abuse of that access. Okay? Then mode A, which is a dominant and prevalent monitoring. Okay, so we're going to try and finish up. I have an appointment at 8:20, so I'm going to be a little quick today. We're going to finish up those lenses to which we